Hey everyone, my name is André, for those who don't know that, and I'm here with Semmler, for everyone who probably knows that by now. Anyway, we're here to talk about the recent changes in the French scene.
Yeah.
The shuffle, if you will.
Yeah.
And let's just get to it, I guess. We have Titan, we have Mercenary, and we have the team that started out having the name BST, but now they're Epsilon, I guess. What I want to ask you first is what was your first reaction to the Titan changes?
Right, I think it was the same reaction that a lot of people had, and that now the LDLC management have expressed. It's just shock, surprise. You know, we're looking at a top 8 team, and you know, actually getting up to that top 4 status almost, where they're consistently getting farther in tournaments. They get into the semifinals of Gamescom, their best result yet at a major, and then a week later they shatter and get completely eviscerated. 2 of the players originally go over to Titan, and then followed by a third with Kaylee. So it's Apex and Maniac, you know, heading over now to Titan to play with Existence and Kenny. And that was just a huge surprise to a lot of people out there, I think. What took us all by surprise, basically, because you're looking at what is becoming one of the best teams in the world, just completely shattered to go and mix with a team that has really been struggling for quite some time, at least since like almost the start of the year. So I think that caught a lot of people by surprise. That's why a lot of people, you know, have been wondering, you know, why are these changes?
My first reaction to the lineup itself, like the names of the lineup, was that there are a lot of like individually skilled players in this team, and maybe not really, as you put it yesterday, I think, there's no real rock in the team. Like you don't have anyone who is the typical consistent player. You have more like 4 superstars and Existence, and we've seen Existence struggle previously with Scream maybe, and Shocks, and maybe even Kenny, that he puts leashes on players and not really let them do their thing. And I feel that this team, looking at the lineup, it should be a team where everyone can do what they want to. Do you agree on that?
I think that the whole thing that we've seen now with Titan is that they've started to get away from structured play and they've moved towards map control and picks, and trying to make the mid-round calls essentially based off of the information that they get. That's been kind of their game plan, and it hasn't really worked for them. They brought in Kenny. That was also something that I don't think really worked for them. I mean, we saw a great performance out of them at G3, but they couldn't make it out of the groups at Gamescom. And I feel like a lot of that rests on the fact that they still rely so heavily on Kenny. And, you know, granted, because this video is a day late, pretty much, you know, we were able to see these players in action yesterday, and it hasn't changed. It still revolves around Kenny for Titan, even with the addition of Kaylee, with, you know, Apex and Maniac, strong players, very solid players, but players that you're kind of concerned about, because Kaylee filled the same role that Kenny S did for LDLC, and I feel like he did it more consistently as well for LDLC. And now, you know, you still have Kenny on Titan who's taking point. And we saw the result of that yesterday, where it's just, you know, he gets a sick ace that gets a frag reel, but he doesn't do anything else for the team in the entire half. And that's going to be the problem, I think, for Kenny. You know, this change has just brought a lot of people in, not only as far as like the stats are concerned, you know, who may be, you know, consistent, right, for LDLC, but are they going to mesh well with Existence and Kenny? But also, you know, the fact that now there's just conflicts. You know, you've got Apex and Existence on the same team. You've got Kenny and Kaylee, both of them excellent oppers. Kaylee can rifle as well, so can Kenny, but like they kind of fill the same role. And then you kind of have Maniac who's just there. And so it's really odd looking at this Titan lineup now and trying to picture how exactly they're going to move forward when, at least at the first glimpse of what we just saw, it doesn't really look much different from what we had in the past.
Yeah, I thought of that when I watched the game last night, which was against Fnatic on Inferno. Turned out 16-12 to Fnatic, which is a pretty close result, but
Absolutely.
The game went basically as you would expect it to. You saw a lot of individual performances that were the reason that the match was so tight.
Well, not to take anything away from Titan, because they did manage to get 12 rounds. Fnatic made a lot of weird calls as well on their part. You know, there was a lot of weird mistakes that I was almost wondering, you know, are Fnatic taking this game seriously with how they're playing it? So that was something as well. I think it was kind of like a mix of Titan still feeling it out, trying to figure out how they're going to play with this new lineup, because they have the double op potential and they have, you know, Existence to mastermind and all of that, but also Fnatic making some weird mistakes that I think wouldn't have happened if Fnatic were playing at their best from the very start.
I do agree with you with the roles in this team. It doesn't feel like there are like a good way of, I don't know how to say it. It doesn't feel like anyone, like it's not clear roles in the team. There are no clear roles.
Well, you already
who's supposed to do what?
Just yesterday, you already see, well, you know, this is natural when you start changing up a team, right? Maybe players are going to have to change positions, but that's a problem. Like, you would think that you want to try and really maintain players in the positions that they excel at, but just watching Inferno yesterday, you know, Apex on T side, he always plays apartments, and now he's playing Banana. And already you see him bottom frag on the T side because he's playing a part of the map that he's not really, you know, that's not his forte. Kenny, you know, they give him the op, but then they, you know, they're just kind of, you know, letting him try and get the picks, but he doesn't really get the picks. You know, it feels like, I don't know, everybody's still going to have to figure it out. On the CT side of Inferno, we saw Kenny playing apps and Kaylee holding Arch, which is usually where Kenny holds. So, you know, you're going to have these changes on the team that basically mean that it's going to take more time, basically, for everybody to feel out how they're going to play or get used to the new positions that they have to play. And, you know, it's just, we're going to need time to see where they can go with it. And
speaking of the roles in the teams, just to jump to the next team to talk about, which is Mercenary, who... We talked about this yesterday as well. They have much clearer roles in their team. It feels like it feels like a logical team, doesn't it?
I think the biggest shock for people now is that they're finding out that NBK is actually the in-game leader for that team. And so everybody, you know, myself included, when I first saw the lineup, I was like, oh, sweet, you know, happy, clearly. You know, it's going to be perfect for them. And then you kind of do that double take, like, wait, what? NBK is actually calling for the team, and you know they didn't play a full roster from Dignitas last night. Fetish wasn't there, so that's still the in-game leader for the team. You know, so it's not the best situation for Dignitas, but still, Dignitas are no walkover. Even if they have a stand-in, you're talking about Device, Dupree, players that are completely capable of laying waste to your team if you give them the opportunity. And still, Mercenaries kept it together and actually, you know, got the win. What was most important and what was really interesting to see was not the return of Shoxy, but definitely, you know, a strong performance from Shoxy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for in this team is, okay, Shoxy is now on a team that really allows him a maximum of amount of freedom. Like, he doesn't have to worry about how inexperienced his teammates are. He doesn't have to lead. He just has 3 very solid, very experienced teammates in Happy, NBK, and Smiths. And he has Kiyoshima, who's shown that he's very capable on Epsilon, and that's, you know, he's brought Kiyoshima over with him from Epsilon. We have Happy, who is from LDLC, and then the 2 Titan members, NBK and Smiths. But the roles are much clearer on this team already. You know, Shox has freedom to go and do whatever he wants, basically. Like, there's zero pressure on him at all times, and we all know that that's when Shox performs the best, when he has no responsibilities. Right? He gets to do what he wants. Shoxy is a powerhouse. He's so tough to deal with. Smith can go back to opping, which is something that he was starting to get very good at before Kenny S was brought onto Titan, and he had to relearn how to play his role, basically. He had to completely change his role. Now he's back into that role that he worked so hard to get good at, and I feel like this is going to be his opportunity, his second chance to shine. NBK is just he's going to be the in-game leader. I think there's the most pressure in this team right now. There's the most pressure on NBK because already, you know, he hasn't led before, and now he is going to. But the thing is, there's pressure there, but there's also, if NBK doesn't do it, Happy is still there to pick up the slack. So if it comes down to it, they still have Happy, who is a very well-rounded player, but who can still lead if it doesn't go through with NBK.
Yeah, and I also think I would be shocked if Happy didn't have anything to do with the leading of the team. It's probably... I sense that the hardest part of being an in-game leader is the mid-round calling,
and that's where Shoxy comes into play as well, because, you know, granted, he doesn't have nearly as much responsibility. Like, he's not leading, but he's kind of doing, you know, what we all thought he was doing basically for Titan, which is helping with the mid-round calls and helping give some information in. So that he's kind of falling back into that role again, where he's there to rifle and do his job there, but if he sees something, he calls it out for his team and he helps make the right call at the end. And I think we saw a pretty solid Mercenaries on Dust 2 last night. It's just going to be really interesting to see, because I think tonight they're playing against Hellraisers. And Hellraisers have seemed very wishy-washy lately, not too sure what to expect from them. But if Mercenaries pick up a second kill tonight, that's going to be a pretty strong statement for a lot of people out there saying, okay, you know, this is looking like it's already showing promise with the win versus Dignitas. But if they take out Hellraisers, it's going to be really interesting. Yeah,
worth noticing is that they've only played at most 2 weeks together, right?
Yeah. And I don't think
must have been after Gamescom.
I don't think they've had much time to prac, but with the prac that they have had, they're feeling pretty confident.
Yeah. So, my first, like, if you would compare Mercenary and Titan, you'd clearly Mercenary have the experienced players more, and Titan have like more of the hotheads, the
Titan
fraggers.
Titan have a lot of experience on their team. I mean, Apex, Maniac, you're still looking at some pretty solid players on it. Kenny S is still like that player who's like just the rising star, and that all eyes are going to be on him. But I still have more trouble seeing how the players are going to fit together as a team on that team than I do for Mercenaries. You know, and it's not about the stats. You know, on paper, perhaps Titan, they've got all these crazy fraggers, but at the same time, if they're not in the position that they need to be in, or they're not clicking, then how are they going to frag? You know, and really, you know, bring those stats in. Whereas on Mercenaries, I feel like everybody kind of has more clear-cut roles. Like they fit together a bit better in what they have to do for the team. And with players like NBK, Shoxy, like you have some very strong talent there that's going to be able to do a lot of damage. And Kyoshima is, I think is somebody, you know, who gets underestimated a lot, but who had a very strong performance at Gamescom on LAN, showed that he was definitely capable of beating some of the best teams. I mean, Nip took a real beating from him in particular. So I mean, you've got some real potential in this team to do quite a bit of damage, I think. But then we have the third team that's been put together now.
I was going to say that it felt like at first this was the team you don't expect much from, because it's the 5 players that weren't in the other 2 teams, if you know what I mean. Sure. It feels like the 5 players who played together because they have no others to play with. That's the first thought.
To put it, you know, to quote Thorin, right, the leftovers.
Yeah, the leftovers. But you still have like FXEO and Scream in that team. And my initial thought was, my God, it's going to be hard for them if those 2 players aren't on their game. Yeah. But yesterday, I just want to put it out, they got 11-4 as CD against Nip on Inferno. So you shouldn't count them out. You
shouldn't count them out, but then you did see some, well, you know, the thing is like they got 11-4 versus Nip. And there were some very questionable after-plant positions from Nip throughout that round. So again, I'm wondering, you know, like, Nip definitely took it seriously, but how seriously, right? There were some very odd plays coming out from the Swedes, but also some good, solid individual play, I think, from BST, which is kind of what we expected to see. I mean, them being a new lineup and everything. But a lot of it is going to come down to Scream, who had a really good performance on that CT half, hitting the headshots. You know, the question is, you know, are they going to be able to mesh well as a team? And is there somebody on that team who's going to be able to bring them together and be the leader for them? Yeah,
there's no clear leader on that team.
It's GMX, I think. I think GMX is the man who's leading the show for BST, because I can't see FXO filling that role. I can't see SF filling that role at all. Scream is not a leader. He's somebody who follows and gets headshots. You know, that's the thing. And Uzi is not a leader as well. He played support for LDLC. He was kind of that guy who was there to fill that role of setting it up, holding some of the easier positions on maps and setting it up for his other teammates. And that's how it was supposed to be, though. That's the thing. People say like Uzi, you know, oh, he's not getting stats. He was doing his job for LDLC. That's what was expected of him on that team. Is you actually are going to be in the shit positions, and you are expected to throw the flashes and smokes. And it's going to be Apex, or it's going to be Kaylee, or it's going to be Maniac who go in and get the kills. That's what was expected of him. Now, if they manage to figure out who's going to be leading on that team, and if that leader actually manages to get them all together and to gel, they've got some scary talent on there with FXO and Scream. I just think that it's going to take a lot of work on their part, just a lot of work on their part to be able to get up to the level of experience that's on the other 2 top teams right now.
All right. So I'm thinking if we could look at these 3 teams and picture them maybe 3 months from now, maybe at DreamHack Winter, maybe, or something like that. Who's gonna be the best of them, and who's gonna be the one that maybe even folds the first? I think Mercenary does look like the long-term team, and I do think Epsilon is the short-term team, or not even that. Maybe they're the team that needs to get the really good start in with their new team, or else it's gonna just.
Well, they've got, like, what's good about Epsilon is they've still got support from the organization, right? Because they're all sporting Epsilon tags. You know, I don't think there hasn't been an official release, but they're all sporting Epsilon tags. So I'm assuming they're going to be sponsored by Epsilon.
That's a big question mark.
So they still have, you know, some support there. Yeah, I think the more important thing is basically, you know, in Prac and in these live matches, Can they get results that are good enough for them to feel confident going forward? Because I think if they, like, as soon as they start getting rolled by teams, if they get rolled by teams really hard, I think it's going to be really tough for this team to stick together. Because I don't see that man with the personality who's going to be, you know, the one to rally everybody around him and be like, no, you know, be the Shoxy for Epsilon, basically. I don't see that really. So I think that they're going to struggle somewhat, but that's not to say that they're not capable of doing it. They just need to get those strong results early on, or at least results like the one versus NIP last night that says, okay, you know, if we actually study this and say, you know, this is kind of how we messed up, this is how they messed up, you know, let's take advantage of that next time, right? You know, put that kind of work into it. That's the kind of result that they need. I kind of put, actually, you know, I'm really curious to see how it's going to shake down with Titan. But I kind of put Mercenaries just ahead of Titan right now. So 3 months down the line, I could see Mercenaries getting better results than Titan.
Titan do feel like a 50-50 in my book. It feels like the team that could easily, like, they have the firepower to be the best team in the world.
Yeah.
But
it's a gimmicky sort of thing.
Question.
It's a mouse sports sort of thing that they're going for, a double op play. You know, and that's not to take anything away from mouse sports. They've got Alu and Chris J. And when Chris J is on his game, it's like Kenny. When Chris J is on his game, like Kenny, he looks like an unstoppable force.
He can win matches.
He win, like Ask LC the last time they played at Case King, right? You know, they got dominated by Chris J and Mouse Sports. But it was Chris J who was walking in and taking all the insane frags. So if Kenny can get games like that, then Titan look indomitable. And then he's got Kaylee behind him, and then, you know, Apex and all that. But like, if Kenny can get games like that, he looks indomitable. But I don't feel like it's consistent enough to base your entire game on Kenny, on making sure that Kenny is the one who can do it for you. I don't think it's good enough. It feels too wishy-washy. But if you look at Mercenaries, it feels a little bit more stable on that team, honestly.
It feels like Kenny is the kind of player, just like Chris J, who's, and to some extent even Dosha, not that they're comparable in playstyle, but they are the kind of players that can win games for their teams, but they can't win tournaments for their team because you have to be so consistent to win a whole tournament.
You have to be consistent all tournament long.
So you need something to back it up, and the question is what will back up Titan?
Well, that's what we look at now. You know, is Existence and Yak, but the manager behind it all, are they able to look at what they have and be like, okay, right now we're focusing on Kenny. That was what we were doing going into Gamescom. We must understand that wasn't exactly the best strategy, so they bring on Kaylee as well. And then they have Apex and Maniac, two very skilled and experienced players. Although how Apex and Existence are going to function together in the same team is really curious for me. But to see how that's going to break up. But well, break up, right? You know, like work. Yeah, but you know how that all pans out. The chemistry on the team is going to be really interesting for a lot of people out there. I mean, I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to see that, you know, Titan, they find a way to make double op work, and they find a way to really, you know, rely on Kenny, and that Kenny comes through in the clutch every single time and everything. But I think right now, just looking at it, the more stable team is Mercenaries.
So what are the odds that we see Mercenary against Titan, or...
That would be one of the sickest matches.
Yeah.
That would be like X-Clan Mystic versus, you know, LDLC sort of stuff.
But I mean, for like a grand final in a tournament.
No,
do you think it's possible that both of them will be like top 2 in the world?
I think they have potential to be there, yeah, definitely. 6 months down the line, we could be looking at them having very firm places in top 8. Like if Titan figure it out. If Mercenaries do as well, I think, you know, the power for me is that Smiths is still a competent opper, but they have NBK, they have Shoxy. They still have, you know, just very solid performers. Happy and Uzi. I mean, there's a lot of solid experience and a lot of solid minds on that team. I feel like those guys can really go far and be a real threat to a lot of the top teams out there.
Yeah, yesterday we were talking about, to maybe round it up because it's 18 minutes long now. We were talking about work ethics yesterday.
Right.
You had some interesting questions.
Well, that's what I wonder about is, you know, because you heard rumors towards the end of Titan that, you know, like they were getting demoralized and that they weren't working as hard as they usually do. So you do wonder, you know, if these new teams, right, is going to give the players that boost of adrenaline that they need to get back into the whole. We have to train every day. We have to train 6 hours a day, if we can, and just, you know, really nose to the grindstone sort of stuff, because they have so much ground to catch up on. Refining their strategies, refining their team play. All of that is just going to demand a monstrous amount of work that they have to put in right now. So are the teams going to really be able to devote themselves fully, and who is actually gonna have the work ethic? Our Apex Maniac, you know, I think that's Titan's edge, is that they have Existence, and Existence just works. He doesn't stop. He's a machine. And so with him and Yak behind him, are they going to be able to instill that kind of work ethic in the rest of the team. And if they do, they're going to be really tough because those guys just won't stop. So our mercenaries, you know, they have a team that fits together better, in my opinion, but are they going to have the work ethic to really make that team work and push it so that they can rival the top teams out there who are busting their asses day in, day out?
All right. Well, I guess we've said pretty much everything.
We've yeah, there's a lot more to be said,
yeah.
but we ended up doing a video that lasted like an hour and a half last night, and that was a bit too long, I think. So this is the short and concise version. I hope you guys liked it, and I hope to be doing more of these for you guys soon.
Yeah, write in the comments. What do you think about these three teams? Which one will be the better? Will we see maybe a French top 3 in a major?
That's the thing, though. Looking at these two teams, looking at these three teams, I mean, hell, if BST can pull it together, I think we definitely have, you know, 3 teams that can get into a top 8 of the next major. Yeah. So it's a good time, guys. You know, they got shredded, they got mixed up like a deck of cards, but you know, the hands that we've been dealt, I think, are pretty good. All right, so until next time. Yep. Peace out, I guess. Late.